Hi guys, and welcome back to day 17 of Inktober. So today I'm drawing a fox, and probably one of my favorite steps of this piece was looking at all the reference of really cute looking foxes. I wanted to do one where the shape of the fox would be relatively circular and self-contained, I guess. As I was designing, I did want it to feel very iconic rather than a fox in a setting. So I looked up a lot of references of fox jumping, where they would jump in the air to catch their prey on the ground, that is, they'd pounce on them. So I did end up looking up a lot of reference to try to find a fox in just the right angle, and ultimately ended up that I needed to use a composite of several different references to finally get the fox into this kind of a position where it's a lot more curved and bent than they normally are. But eventually I was able to find enough that really worked. I found one for the basic leg pose, as well as a reference for how the head is crouched down more. So it was really fun just to look through all the pictures and find ones that solved the puzzle piece that I was missing. And ultimately it, I think, worked pretty well for me to be able to get a pose of a fox that I needed that didn't necessarily exactly exist in the world, which worked really well, because when it comes to drawing people and you need a very specific pose, you can always use yourself to get the basic anatomy of how the pose functions and works. But with an animal, there's only so much you can do with that. But yeah, that actually worked out pretty okay for being able to find what I had in mind. And a quick little side note, I have had a lot of people ask about prints for my Inktober's, and so I'm finally going to add them all to the shop, actually. So if you'd like a print of any of them so far, I will have one listing that will combine all of them together, and you can just go in and choose which day you'd like. I will also, and I am still working very hard on it, making it happen, I'll be producing a book that features all of my Inktober's as well. So if you want to get a collection of all of them, that'll happen. But if you'd like to get a large, full-size, frame-worthy print, those are available now as well. So there is a link in the description as well as in the end card. Eventually that'll happen. And that is a great way to support me. I just want to mention that you guys are so amazing when you do show your support that way, because it helps me to make these videos. But anyways, getting back to this piece, I had a lot of fun really pushing the texture in the background specifically. It's been something that I've really pushed a lot in all of my Inktober's. I think it definitely helps since I don't have color to add a lot of interest to a piece. I've let myself really enjoy and utilize the texture of the inks and letting it break apart and just look very not smooth, which is completely opposite of how I normally do my watercolors. So I've really enjoyed the change of pace as far as how I handle this water medium. But this one in particular, I did really enjoy pushing it a lot. One thing that I do make sure of when I'm letting the ink create this separated look, I guess, I make sure that if it's going to dry, which helps create that, if one part is a little bit drier than the next where I'm putting water down, it separates it. I make sure that those converging sections are not right at lines, if that makes sense. So I don't do it exactly lined up with the edge of, say, the tail, where I would normally stop a brush to be able to reconfigure where I'm painting from, because that just emphasizes that it looks unintentional, like an accidental texture mistake. But if you put it in a more open area where it feels a lot more like that's just the process of the ink separating rather than the process of me halting and letting the paint sit too long in one particular spot, it really does help it look much more intentional. And towards the end, I realized that I needed a little bit more to balance out the fox. I had the seal in the lower bottom corner, but it just felt a little bit too homogeneous, I guess, with the value, at least for the background and the fox. So I did end up going in and adding a darker wash that gradiated up into a lighter wash from the bottom up towards the fox. And that actually really grounded this piece out, so it didn't feel quite so floating in a void. It did give it a little bit more structure to it and weight to the bottom, which really did improve this one. And earlier I just added some little splashes of the ink wash with one of my brushes. And it's really easy to make sure that it doesn't get on the area that you don't want it to be on. I just took a little sheet of my vellum and covered the fox, and then I would splatter it on up towards the top, and then I would let it dry and then move it around so that I was blocking the fox and then doing the bottom part. And I would definitely like to do that more. I actually think it adds a lot of interest to it, and it's so easy and actually really fun. I think I'd also like to pull out some of my white ink and do some ink splatters with the white as well. And that is it for today's Inktober. Like I mentioned, there is a link in the description that'll take you to my art shop where you can get the original as well as prints. And I also have a list of all of the tools that I use down in the description as well. It is pretty much the same for all of my Inktober pieces, so it's nice and simple. But if you're curious, it is right down there. And I think that's about it for today. I do post daily Inktober videos, so I'll be back tomorrow with another one. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow.